Good morning and welcome to Daf Yomi. It's wonderful to have you on board. To all of the fine virtual studio audience on Zoom and to the millions watching on YouTube, we welcome you all this morning to another page of our cycle. Today we are going to be doing Maseches Pesachim, page Nun Zayin, page 57. It's quite a short one. It's the end of the fourth chapter, fourth perek, and it's only got 8 lines on the following page, so that's why it's not the longest stuff. It's also not the hardest, but it does have some quite interesting things which we, probably require further explanation and might not necessarily have our palate satisfied by the pace at which we go through a daf usually. So let's get it up on the screen for you here, and let's get it up for you on the screen on Zoom. Can everyone see that? So we'll pick it up from the Mishnah. It's always good to contextualize what we're learning with the latest or most recent Mishnah, I should say. So let's take a little quick look at the Mishnah in question, and we are looking at 6 things that the people of Yericho, at one point in history, 6 things that they did, 6 things that they instituted, 6 perhaps, I don't know what you would say, 6 unusual practices, 3 of which were approved by the local sages, and 3 of which were very much not approved by the sages. So let's take a little quick look at this. Shishad Varim, Asu Anshe Yericho. There were 6 things that the people of Yericho did. Al Shlosha Michu Biadam. 3 of these things the rabbis protested. Al Shlosha Lo Michu Biadam. And 3 of these things the rabbis just let them get on with it. Says the Mishnah, Ve'elu hen shelo michu bi'adam. These were the things that they didn't protest and make a fuss about. Markivim dekalim kol hayom. They I don't know if you would say they turned a blind eye or whether they said that it was okay, but the people of Yericho would graft palm trees the entire day on the 14th of Nisan. Now, if you haven't gone through yesterday's stuff, you might not fully understand what that means. But as Rashi says, all of these things get explained in the Gemara, and we're not going to be dealing with them in our daf today. The Korchines Shema, they would bundle the Shema together, which means a couple of possible different things. Either they didn't have any kind of interruptions, or they didn't say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Soli Olam Va'ed. Again, we refer to yesterday's stuff. The Kochim V'Gochin Lifnei HaOmer, and they would harvest and pile grain before the Omer was brought. Then says the Mishnah, Ve'elu Shemichu Bi'adam. These were the things that they did protest about. Matirin Gamzios Shel Hekdesh. They would permit the use of branches of Hekdesh. So if they had consecrated a tree, a carob tree or sycamore tree, as it says there on the screen, and then new branches grew through, it seems they would permit the use of these, but the rabbis protested. And as on page 56a, they would eat from fruit that had fallen off of a tree on Shabbos, which was not okay. But nosnin peya leyerek, and they would allocate peya to poor people from vegetables. Umichu biyadam chachamim, and the rabbis protested about that. So that's really the last one is the one that has any relevance to today's daf. The nosnin peya leyerek, they would give peya from vegetables. So the way peya works, or what peya is, it was an allocation that was left in a field that poor people would be entitled to come and take from. It would be produce that would be left for poor people to take. But here's the crucial point. You're supposed to only leave things like fruits, which have a longer shelf life. You're not supposed to leave vegetables, which have a very short shelf life. So actually, what they were doing was not okay, and it was not fulfilling the halachic requirement of leaving peya. So that is why the rabbis were not too keen on it, and there is going to be some relevance of that particular halacha to our daf today. So we'll pick it up from the bottom of 56b, the last two lines there. Baraisa Tanu Rabbanon. Say the rabbis. At first, the people of Yericho would set aside payah from lefes and kruv. They would leave their turnips and they would leave their cabbages in their field for poor people to take. Rabbi Yossi Omer, the kiflot. They would also leave leeks. V'tanya Ida, but we have another brisa that says Hayunoslin payah lelefes v'likiflot, that they would leave as payah turnips and leeks. And Rabbi Shimon Omer, af likrov. And Rabbi Shimon says, even cabbages. So, we've got two sources over here. We've got one source where an undesignated rabbi says turnips and cabbages, to which Rabbi Yossi comes and says, oh no, also leeks. And then we have another undesignated source which says turnips and leeks, and Rabbi Shimon comes along and says even cabbages. So the Gemara asks at the top, guys, please can you whisper? I'm not listening so much. So the Gemara asks at the top of 57a, the top of Nun Zayin Amud Aleph, today's daf. Nema Talasa Tanai Havu. Let's say that there were three Tanaim. There were three sages from the time of the Mishnah who are arguing over this point. We've got the two undesignated opinions, whether it was turnip and cabbage or turnip and leek. And then we've got Rabbi Yossi and we've got Rabbi Shimon. So that would seem to indicate that we've got three Tanaim arguing over this topic. So the Gemara answers, look, no, not the case. Trei Tanai Havu. There were two Tanaim who were arguing over this point. The Tanakama, the Rabbi Shimon, the undesignated opinion who seems to argue with Rabbi Shimon, that is none other than Hainu Rabbi Yossi. That is Rabbi Yossi. The Tanakama, the Rabbi Yossi, and the undesignated opinion who seems to be arguing on Rabbi Yossi, Hainu Rabbi Shimon. That is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. So the Gemara asks, Umay af. So what did the Mishnah or these Brisas mean when it said af? That these rabbis come along and they say af, even cabbages or even leeks. What did it mean? Akamaisa. It meant with regards to the universally agreed vegetable of turnips, they were disagreeing, however, with regards to the other vegetables. So akamaisa means that they were saying even with regards to the vegetable of their choice, that they were universally agreeing with turnips. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanon, says the rabbis, Ben Buhyan Nasan Peah Leyarak. Ben Buhayan, the son of someone named Buhayan, he would give payah on vegetables. He would leave vegetables on the side of his field when he was harvesting. He would leave them on the side for poor people to come and collect. Uba Aviv, but his father, whose name was Buhayan, he would come, Umatzayin La'niyim, and he found these poor people, Shahayu Tu'unim Yerek, Va'omdim on Pesach Hagina, that they were taking these vegetables and they were carrying them out and they were standing by the entrance of the garden. Amar Lahem, he said to them, B'ni, my sons, referring to the poor people, Hishlichu me'alechem, cast these vegetables off from you, V'ani nosen lachem kiflaim b'ma'ushar, and I will give you twice the amount in produce that has been tithed correctly. See, the problem also you have to realize is that if we're leaving aside payah, which is untithed, and you're only supposed to be doing that with fruit, then if you're leaving vegetables, which are untithed, you're creating another problem for them. Because vegetables are not supposed to be payah, but they are supposed to be tithed before they are consumed. So you're leaving produce, which is very, very lovely of you, but it's not fulfilling the mitzvah of payah, and you're also not giving them any tithed produce. So the father said, guys, don't worry, I've got your backs. Put down these vegetables, which are untithed and not supposed to be payah, and I will give you twice the amount in tithed produce. And then he continued to say, Lo mipnei she'enai tzara, not because I wish to be stingy or I wish to begrudge you of what you've taken. Ela mipnei she'amru chachamim ein nosin pei al yerek. But because the sages have said that you should not take payah from yerek. So that's all well and good. But the Gemara picks up on this rather strange phrasing of not wishing to begrudge them. So the Gemara asks, Lama leila meinra lehu? Why did he need to say to them, Lo miplei she'enai tzara? That I don't want to begrudge you. It's a bit strange. He has offered them twice the amount of what they were originally going to take. So why would anyone even think that he is begrudging them? So the Gemara answers, it was in order that they would not think that he is just trying to put them off taking something now and then trying to give them something later. He wanted to make sure that they understood. Now he was going to fulfill his agreement, that he was going to give them replacement produce. Not only that, but it would be double. But he didn't want them to think that he was just trying to push them off at this point and wasn't going to honor his agreement later on. Continues the Gemara, Tana Rabbanan, another statement by the rabbis. Now all of these statements by the rabbis, it's all connected to this Mishnah of the 6 enactments by Yericho. So everything kind of branches out from that Mishnah. So we've seen a topic about payah that is seemingly unrelated to our Mishnah, and now we're going to see some other things as well, which all branch out from the concept in our Mishnah. So says the Gemara, Barishona, originally, Hayu manichin oros kodshin belishchas beis haparva. Originally, what they would do is, when the Kohanim in the Beis Hamikdash were building up the stock of animal hides that were coming from the sacrifices during the week, they would put them for storage temporarily in the Beit HaParva, in the Parva chamber of the Beis Hamikdash. Now, these hides, these animal skins, they would have been eventually distributed to the Kohanim. But what we see is that actually the process of distributing to the Kohanim had a few complications. So the Gemara says, La'erev, hayu mechalkin osan la'anshe beis av. In the evening, they would distribute these animal hides to the members of the family who were serving on that particular day, on that particular week in the Beis Hamikdash. As we've talked about before, I think, there was a rotation of shifts of priestly families that would work in the Beis Hamikdash. So depending on who was working in the Beis Hamikdash that day, they would have these hides distributed. But this is what happened. V'hayu balei zroos, the stronger men, not linosam bizroa, they would barge their way in, and they would take the hides, they would take the skins by force. So it wasn't getting distributed fairly. So what happened? The sages, hiskinu sheyihiyu mechalkin osam erev Shabbos and erev Shabbos. The rabbis instituted that it would only be distributed once a week on Erev Shabbos. And that way, it would be more fair and more equal. The asai kuluhu mishmaros, the shaklan b'holiday, because all of the priestly watchers would be able to come and they would be able to take their shares. However, v'adayin hayu gadule kahona, but then they found that the most senior or the most prominent of the Kohanim, they would barge their way in and they would force these hides to be given to them. So what ended up happening is that the owners of these sacrifices, when they were having their sacrifices performed, in order to prevent any problems of Kohanim fighting amongst each other, they started consecrating these animal hides to Hekdesh, to the Beis Hamikdash, to Hashem. And by doing that, the Kohanim would have no share in being able to take them, and then there would be no more fighting. So what happened was, Amru, they said, Lo hayu yamin mu'atin al shechiku es ha'heichal kula b'tavlaos shel zahav. It wasn't long before the entire Beis Hamikdash, the Heichal, the big hall, was plated with golden, with sheets. It says tablets there. That's not a great word, but basically panels of gold. It wasn't long before the whole Beis Hamikdash was covered in gold. Amma al amma ka'oved din zahav, with tiles of gold that were an amma by an amma, and had a thickness of a dina of gold. Why? Because these hides had been sanctified. The Kohanim couldn't just take them, but if they wanted them, they'd have to redeem them in return for money. And so the Beis HaMikdash made a huge profit from this. And so it wasn't long, the Gemara is saying, it wasn't long before the temple had made so much money from out of this that they had all of this ability to overlay the interior design of the Beis HaMikdash with gold. Uluregel, how you make up in the sun, when people would come for the Shalosh Regalim, for the festivals, they would pile them all up. And they would place them on a step out on the Temple Mount, so that people who were coming to the Beis HaMikdash would be able to see how beautiful this craftsmanship was and how flawless these sheets were. So it was an amazing spectacle that came out of this rather unfortunate incident. So now we'll see some more strong-arming with some other interesting anecdotes. Tana, it was taught. Abba Shaul says, Koros shel Shikma hayu bericho. The people of Yericho had trunks from sycamore trees. The hayu bale zeros notlin osam bezroa. And the powerful people, the strong people, would barge their way in, and they would take these trunks by force. What happened? Amdu balid v'hikdishim l'shamayim. Aleihem v'alkayotze bahem. So the owners of these trees stood up, and they consecrated their trunks to heaven, so that these strong-armed people would not be able to barge in and take them. The result of that was that everything that was growing from these trees was hekdesh, was sanctified, and so it was inappropriate for the people of Yericho to have done this. Abba Shaul ben Botnis, Mishum Abba Yosef ben Chanin. Abba Shaul ben Botnis said in the name of Abba Yosef ben Chanin, Oili mi beis baisus. Woe to me. No, my apologies. I have an incorrect full stop. They consecrated them to heaven. With regards to these prominent priests and those like them, see, it's all about where you put those commas. Abba Shaul ben Botnis said in the name of Abba Yosef ben Chanin, Oili mi beis baisus. Woe is me, due to the Kohanim of the house of Baitus. Oili ma'altan. Woe to me because of their clubs. What's going on there? So again, I think it's to do with their strong arming and the impact that had on their surrounding people. Oili mi beis Chanin. Woe to me of the Kohanim Gedolim of the house of Chanin. Oili malchishasam. And woe to me because of their whispering and the rumors that they spread, which would again have a negative impact on those around them. Oili beis Kutros. Woe to me because of the Kohanim Gedolim of the house of Kutros. Oili mikul musan. Woe to me because of their pens. They would write lies with their pens. Oili beis Yishmael ben Piachi. Woe to me because of the family of Yishmael ben Piachi. Oili me'agrufan shehem kohanim gedalim. Woe to me because of their fists, because of the power and the almost mafioso influence that they had on the Beis HaMikdash. As we may well know, not every high priest served in the Beis HaMikdash with the highest regard for Kedusha and sincerity and authenticity. So there were these dark periods in our history on account of inappropriately behaving high priests. So how far did the power extend? Shehem Kohanim Gedolim, they are high priests. V'neihem Gizbarim, their sons were the treasurers. V'chasneihem Amarklin, their sons-in-law were the overseers of the temple. V'avdein Choftin Esa'am B'maklos, and their servants would strike people with clubs. So it would seem that they had a bit of a hold over other people when they were in the Beis HaMikdash. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught. Arbat Savachot Savacha Azara. There were 4 cries that the Azara cried. Some were for the bad and some were for the good. Rishona, the first one, Sumi B'nei Eli, Shetimu Heichal Hashem. Leave here the sons of Eli who have defiled God's sanctuary. And another cry, Say Mikan Yisachar Ish Kafar Barkai. Get out of here, Yisachar, from the village of Barkai. So these are almost, I don't know whether you would say the courtyard is actually crying, but metaphorically or whatever, the Beis Hamikdash is ruining these people who are ruining it for everyone else. Say Mikan Yisachar Ish Kfar Barkai. Get out of here, Yisachar, from the village of Barkai. Shemechabe es atzmo, because he only honors himself. Umechalel Kodshe Shemayim, and he desecrates the the heaven. Why? To have a karich yadei b'shirai v'avid avoda, because he wears gloves when he comes in to do the avoda in the Beis Hamikdash. He wraps silk around his hands when he is performing avoda in the Beis Hamikdash. That is not okay. He was trying to stop himself from getting dirty, but that is not okay. There's not supposed to be anything coming in between the Kohanim, their feet, and the Beis Hamikdash. That's why they walked around barefoot. But there's also not to be anything coming between their hands and what they're holding. So that was also inappropriate. Continues the Gemara. Va'od tzavacha, a third cry, but this one's actually for the good. Su sha'arim rashechem, the words that we know from Tehillim. Lift your heads, O gates. V'ikanes Yochanan ben Narbai, and let him in. Yochanan ben Narbai, Talmid Shel Pinkai, the student of Pinkai. V'male kriso mikadshe shemayim, and let his stomach be filled with the meat of sacrifices. Amru alav al Yochanan ben Narbai. It was said about Yochanan ben Rabbi, Shahaya Ochel Gimel Meis Agalim, that he could eat 300 calves. Calves. I know the feeling. V'shoseh Gimel Meis Garbe Yain, and he could drink 300 jugs of wine. V'ochel Arbaim Seah Gozelos, V'kinuach Suda, and he could eat 40 sa'ah, which is a huge amount of young birds, just for dessert. Amru, they said, Kol Yamav Shel Yochanan ben Rabbi, in all the days of Yochanan ben Rabbi, Lo Nimtza no Sabbath Mikdash. There was never such a concept of leftover sacrifices at the end of his shift, because someone would always eat it. My Salka Bey Bisacha Ish Kfar Bakai. What was his fate? Have I missed a bit? Oh, I'm sorry, I did miss a bit. Just jumping back up. A few lines. I just went to the fourth one. Over here, I missed this guy. V'od Savacha Ha'azara, the altar also cried out for the goods. U'sha'im Rashechem, O gates, let Yishmael ben Piachi enter, the Talmid of Pinchas, the student of Pinchas. V'shamesh bekuhuna gedola, and let him work and serve as a high priest, even though we've seen with the family of Yishmael ben Piachi that they were particularly violent. He himself was a student of Pinchas and was to be praised. So my apologies that I missed that line. But then we went on to talking about Yochanan ben Narbai. Now as we reach the end of our page of Yochanan ben Narbai, we see a rather unfortunate story about Yochanan ben Narbai. What ended up happening? Sorry, where am I? Not Yochanan ben Narbai. Yisachar ish kafar bakai. What ended up happening to Yisachar ish kafar bakai? We're on the second line from the bottom of the page. What happened to him? Amri Malka Umachasa Havu Yasvi. We had King Yanai and his queen who were sitting, and they asked the question. Malka Amar Gadi Ya'i. Goat meat is better. It's the better type of meat. Umachasa, his wife, the queen, who is Jewish, by the way, Amra, Imra Ya'i, lamb is better food. So Amru, Man Muchach, they said, who could ever come and decide this for us? So Kohen Gadol, the Kamasik Korbanos Kol Yama, who better to decide this question than the high priest, who offers sacrifices all day? so he should know what's better meat to consume. Asa Ihu, so he came, and as we turn the page to Nun Zayin Amud Beis, Achvi Biyade, he kind of just casually dismisses with his hand, and he just kind of glosses over the importance of being presented before the king, treats it in a bit of a disrespectful way, and he said, if goat meat was better, then Hashem would have asked us to sacrifice goat meat every day for the Korban Tamid. The fact that he hasn't done, the fact that he asks for a lamb to be sacrificed as the Korban Tamid would surely indicate that that it's the better choice. Amar Malka, but the king said, since he has not shown any fear of my monarchy with his casual dismissal of my suggestion that goat meat is preferred, so nifsaku liyamine, I'm going to cut off his right hand. What happened? Yahav shochad upaske lismale, but he gave a bribe so that the guy would cut off his left hand instead. Shama malka upaske liyamina, but then the king heard that Yisachar had deceived him, and he cut off his right hand as well. As a Kohen Gadol, he wanted to keep his right hand so he could continue to serve in the Beit HaMikdash. That's why he wanted to have his left hand cut off. But once the king heard that he had offered this bribe and tricked him, he cut off his right hand as well. He ended up with no hands. Amar Rav Yosef said, Baruch Rachamana, Baruch Hashem, Da'ashkele li'isachar ish kafar ba'akai, le'mitarfse minei b'hayalma. Rav Yosef said, blessed is God, who took his retribution from Yisachar of Kfar Bakai in this world and did not wait to give him a higher punishment in the next world, since he had been using his hands inappropriately to cover them up when he was serving in the Beis HaMikdash. So that is why, it was the same guy. So that is why he received this punishment of having his hands cut off in this world, so as to spare him any further punishment in the world to come. Amar Rav Ashi said, following on from our topic, Yisachar ish kfar Barkai, this guy, Yisachar from Barkai, lo tanamas nisan, he clearly didn't learn Mishnayos, to Tanan, because it's taught in the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon Omer, kvasim kodmin le'izim b'chol makom, that lambs are prioritized in the psukim in every place. Yachol mipnei shemu b'charim b'minan. So the Gemara asks, do we think that that is because the Torah is trying to tell us that it's a more select species? Talmud Lomar, the pasuk comes to teach us, in keves yavi korbano, if a lamb, if he brings a lamb as his offering, but where it's quoting from, that verse, that wording appears after talking about goats. So the fact that you have an instance in the Torah where goats is talked about first, it actually goes to show that in Hashem's eyes, both of these animals are viewed as being equal. Ravina says, even the psukim he didn't read properly. Dichsiv, as it says in Keves and in Eis. The verse says if a lamb, and the verse says if a goat. Teaching, ibai keves laise, ibai eis laise. Teaching that if one had wanted to bring a lamb, or if one had wanted to bring a goat, the Torah does not make a particular fuss with regards to one of the korbanos, with regards to a shlamim, a peace offering. And so again, you see directly from the psukim that Hashem views both these animals equally. And so, therefore, it is delicious to eat lamb, and it is delicious to eat goat, apparently. Either way, we finish the 4th chapter, and we finish our daf for today. So join me as we say these words on the screen together. Hadran alach, makom shenahagu. We will return to you the chapter makom shenahagu, which is the chapter that we've been reading. Uslikala Pesach Rishon. And we've also finished Pesach Rishon. This is unusual to say at the end of a chapter, but it's referring to the fact that we have now dealt with all of the halachos with regards to chametz and matzah. That's almost like the first issue of Pesach. And now for the next few chapters, we're going to be dealing with the Korban Pesach, before we ultimately get to the Seder at the very last chapter. So we say it 3 times. We've said it once. Hadran alach makom shenahagu uslika la Pesach Rishon. Hadran alach makom shenahagu uslika la Pesach Rishon. Mazel tov, everybody, on finishing the 4th chapter. And that's all for today. So join us next week as we enter the exciting world of Pesachim, page 64. In the meantime, have a wonderful and meaningful